Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon to everybody. Just take a couple minutes to talk a little bit about the weekend and then certainly Colorado State. So, first of all, it's always good to get the victory. You know, it's number one on the list, and we basically have two goals every week to try to win the game that's at hand and then hopefully show some growth as a football team. And obviously, you know, looking at the score always makes it easy to determine the first, but I think the second one's a little bit harder to gauge, you know, coming off the field. And, you know, after watching the tape, I think we saw a lot of really good things, especially up front on both sides of the last scrimmage. Got a lot of young players playing on both sides of the ball, or inexperienced players. And, you know, really pleased with some of the things we saw, just little intricate details and good reactions by guys that maybe weren't doing things quite as well a couple of weeks ago. So thought we saw some growth there. Certainly offensively, pleased with that drive we had in the second quarter, and thought we did a lot of good things. You know, the play that got taken back, the third down reception was you know, impacted the game in a lot of ways. You know, just the momentum, all that type of thing. But outside of that, I thought we saw some good things. And then, you know, defensively, anytime you give up 7 points, you're happy about that, and that's first and foremost on defense. But the big play, you know, we got victimized by some big plays, and that's, you know, it's not good at any time. So, and as I said Saturday, I thought special teams impacted the game pretty positively for the most part, but we missed some opportunities there too, and they were really close. But, you know, all that being said, just a lot of room for growth still for our football team. So a lot of good things, but a lot of areas we can still improve on for sure. Moving to Colorado State, so we've got the four captains that we started with. Tyler Linderbaum, got Matt Hankins, Jack Kerner, Spencer Petras. They'll be the four captains out there Saturday. On the injury front, you know, Collar Shot came out of the game pretty good, and he's not in great shape yet, playing shape, but at least he's moving in the right direction, so he'll be back. And then unfortunately, Ethan Herkett, you know, he's going to miss some time here. You know, incurred an injury in the second half, I believe it was, so he'll be out. Colorado State's coming off a you know, really impressive win, a good win over Toledo, who took Notre Dame to the wire the week before that. So, you know, it was a good road win for them, certainly. Their first road trip. Their staff's a really good staff. Coach Adazio was up at Boston College when we played him in the Pinstripe Bowl, so certainly familiar with his past. And you see a lot of similarities between what they were doing at Boston College and what they're doing at Colorado State, not only in terms of scheme, but also the way their guys play. They're a big team, physical team, especially up front. They do a good job there. They've got a big running back. BC had a good running back, a big physical guy last time we played him. I think the quarterback's doing a really nice job for him. And, you know, basically, again, they just have good size, physical team, and they don't beat themselves. They're really sound, do a good job protecting the football, don't give up easy things, and done a nice job there. And then the other thing I would just interject, you're probably going to see as good a tight end as there is in the country. They've got a guy who's really playing well, a local guy from right there in Fort Collins, I believe. So he's a really good football player, and his brother's a good player too, but he's an outstanding tight end. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now and trying to get ready for. You know, if you look at this season as if it were a game, we're about a quarter done right now. And so it's going fast, and it always goes fast once it gets going. It takes forever to get going. That first game week is always lengthy, but nonetheless, it just, you know, illustrates again, we got a really long road in front of us right now. A lot of football ahead still, and you know, a lot of opportunity with that. But, you know, all that being said, our focus right now is just what I said earlier, getting ready for this game, and then also trying to improve. And it's always a twofold task as we go from that. So excited to be at home, certainly, and excited. Hey, we got Bradley Stevens, the kid captain. He's a 9-year-old from Gladbrook, Iowa, and he'll be with us on Saturday. So that being said, I'll throw it out for questions.
What visible differences did you see in having Kyler Schott back on the field this past weekend, seeing him in practice again?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just in a nutshell, he kind of knows how to play, you know, and I guess that sounds pretty basic and mundane, but it's guys that have been out there just react a little bit more naturally and a little quicker. So I think that part shows up right away, and you know, and we see it in practice every day too, at least the last couple of weeks. So it's good, and you know, the more of that you can add to your mix, the better off you're going to be. But he's not really, like I said, in game shape yet. I don't know how many. I don't think he finished the one drive he was in on. Maybe it was that long drive, but he had to come out, and it's going to take a while to get him back where he can can play a full game, but it's good to have him in the mix. In the meantime, we're getting a lot of other guys getting really valuable experience, and that's a positive too.
I wanted to ask about the fake punt. We didn't get to after the game. Sorry.
It's called bad coaching, right here. Yeah, so I'll take that one. Yeah, it was dumb. Yeah, that was a dumb sequence.
I mean, it did look like there was a lot wrong with it, but what kind of went wrong with the play? I mean,
it was a bad call on my part to think that might be a good idea at that point. That it was dumb on a lot of levels, and so yeah, there's only one positive. It's on film now, so people are going to have to, okay, maybe they're going to fake a punt. And then in that case, they'll probably say, I hope they do it in that situation. It'd be great. It was 4th and 8 or 9, whatever it was. That was just dumb. And a dumb time. I mean, in retrospect, really dumb.
Along,
That was dumb.
I won't go dumb.
Easy to laugh when you win, right? But I mean, it just...
it doesn't come up when you win.
I want to ask about special teams, but not the dumb part. And that was pretty
Appreciate
much...
that.
7, 8 years ago, there were a lot of mistakes, especially fake punts, the onside kicks you guys let go through. That hasn't been the case. It seems like LeVar has helped stabilize that. But in what ways have you shored up special teams, and why is it now one of the best units? Last year, I think it was graded as the best unit in the country.
Well, I don't thank the NCAA for much publicly, so I'll take this opportunity since you teed it up for me. I'll thank them for allowing us to expand our coaching staff, and there's a reason why the NFL teams have had special teams coaches really probably started back in the 70s, I guess. I mean, Coach Belichick was on the front end of that. But it just, yes, it's a world of difference. Those guys, in my opinion, have always kind of been cheated a little bit, especially the specialists. They've, people without a country in some ways, they just, kind of float. They're nomads. This guy kind of coaches them, but really doesn't because he's got another position to coach and all that kind of thing. So I think the ability, first of all, for the specialists, just for them to meet, and they meet with LeVar daily on just like everybody else does with their position coaches. That's been huge. And then to have a coach who's solely focused on the schemes, the calls, strategies, all those things. I mean, it's a whole world within the world of football. So, that part's all been good, I think, but the rule enabled us to do that. The only other way you could do is to cheat it, which we tried a little bit, maybe having a grad assistant coach at tight ends or a different position, but I think that's helped. And then the other component here is that LeVar, I think, is really growing into that role, really embraced it and growing into it, and that's how he made his living in the NFL, being a good special teams player. So fully appreciates the value of it and what goes into it and what a difference it can make. So he's engrossed himself in it. Wasn't an expert necessarily on the specialist part of it, but has really expanded his knowledge there, and that's been great. And so I think it's been a really good combination, and it's been fun to watch. It's fun to watch players. Terry Roberts is a great example. How he's grown into a good football player through special teams. We've had that all throughout the years, but now they're getting a little bit more attention that way, and they can go meet with Coach Woods and get one-on-one coaching, which was a little tougher back in the old days, if you will. So I think it's been great for us, and it's a huge part. It's always been a huge part of our program, thinking-wise.
Along those lines, with the special teams, you switched out your long snapper at Iowa State and stuck with him. What can you tell us about your new long snapper and what went into that decision?
Yeah, he's doing a good job, and it's just, we pretty much base things on what we see in practice and what we see in games, and right now we just feel like he gives us a little better opportunity out there. But, yeah, Luke's done a good job. Teased the coaching staff. I asked her, are we sure he's got a driver's license? He looks like he's 14. He's a really young-looking guy, and they assure me he does. It doesn't matter. I mean, he can still snap without a driver's license, but he is a young-looking guy, so don't try not to think too much about that. He's done a good job, though. We liked him a lot in recruiting. LeVar, saw him in camp or whatever, and he's just done a really good job.
You've got a 3-week sample size now of your offense so far this season. What do you like about where they're at right now, and what's the next step as you guys try and get to your best here in November and so on?
The offensive line, I'm sorry? Yeah, well, I think we took strides. I think we were a little more detailed, and I thought today was probably our best offensive practice this year, which is maybe it coincides with fall. It felt like fall, and I think this is the first day of fall. So, but it looked like, we just seemed a little more cohesive out there and a little better with our execution, that type of thing. And it takes time. It's frustrating at times, and you want things to go faster and all that. But, And we're not there yet, but at least I think we're moving in the right direction. And saw some things out there Saturday. Again, that drive obviously sticks out. And I can't guarantee that we would have continued to drive on that one play on our sideline, but felt like we had a little momentum going, and but it wasn't meant to be. So, but just in general, seeing some execution. A lot of it has to do with what goes up front. I think those guys played their best. I know they played their best Saturday relative to the other two games.
A lot of your players were talking about the importance of building that short-term memory, whether it's a long drive or whether it's Ivory, Kelly Martin having a couple fumbles here and there. I know that experience plays into that, but what else goes into building that short-term memory and kind of enabling them to learn how to go to the next play and move on?
We try to talk about it, and you try to reinforce it in whatever way you can. But ultimately, players just have to develop them. That's where mental toughness comes into, and you can't. You learn from anything that happens in life, whether it's good or bad. But at some point, you got to move on, and that really, if you're in the business of which our players are competing out there on Saturdays, you just can't sit and dwell on things, and you can't celebrate a good thing too long either. Celebrate it. I'm all for that. But in a game, you got to keep moving. You got to keep your eyes looking forward, and I said this the other day about Ivory. I mean, Ivory's played, so it's not like he doesn't know what to do. He knows what to do, and he knows, and that's part of the film review too. You go back and look at those two plays. The guy got a helmet on a ball. That's tough. I mean, it was one of those circumstances. Not excusing it or saying it's okay, but it's a tough situation. And the other one, I'm just glad he was able to get up and walk away. It looked like a car wreck out there. It was really a crazy play, and just bad timing for him, obviously at that point. But he's practicing well. We've had 2 days already. He's practicing well, and he'll play well Saturday. I'm confident of that. And just it's part of life. You can't dwell on things. And if there's something that's got to be corrected, then that's got to be corrected. But that's not the case in this one.
Ahead at Saturday, you mentioned McBride. How much of a challenge is he to cover in terms of game planning for him?
He's really, really good. And a couple things about him. He does everything well. He blocks well. They pull him a lot, bring him across formation, that type of thing. And then it's interesting. The offensive coordinator now was at Wisconsin, played at Wisconsin, was up there. And, they've done a nice job last couple decades of what they do to feature good tight ends. So you see some of that thinking in there too, some of the screen passes they run and little things they do that are a little bit unique. So you can see that flavor being integrated into the offense. But they're going to get him the ball. They're going to put it in his hands, and he's a really good blocker. He's a big physical guy, but also a really good runner too. So, and they're going to make sure he gets the ball, which that's good coaching.
Does it help when you have kind of a good history of tight ends here in terms of in practice?
Yeah, I mean, our guys on the scout team don't look like that guy, I can tell you that. And, it's just one of those deals. But at least we know what one looks like, that's for sure. And we've played against a lot of really good tight ends. I mentioned Wisconsin typically has some guys that are pretty tough to defend. But it's still a unique challenge. And I think that's one reason tight ends are at a premium. If you think about the NFL game, like if you got one, it's really an advantage because they're tough to match up on, especially if they can block a little bit. And 85 can do that really well.
You made a point of emphasis to get Tyrone Tracy involved more last week. I mean, how important is it going to be to get Tyrone involved in the offense just for you guys, going forward and obviously?
I don't know necessarily we went in the game saying, okay, we got to get him X amount of touches, but he did have more, and that's a good thing for us, and it's something for us to be mindful of. Sometimes, you can't always control that, but he's a really good football player and a great young guy, and he knows what to do with the ball in his hand. My biggest fear, and I may have said this there, sometimes I think we're trying to do too much with one play. Just let it play out, and it's kind of like defense. You get turnovers by just playing good defense and being aggressive, and then the ball will come to you when it comes to you, and it's the same way that way. But we want to keep Tyrone involved, and whether it's throwing it to him, handing it to him, whatever. A really good football player.
It seems like Colorado State brings some similarities either to Big Ten teams. Like on offense, they look like Wisconsin with a lot of their polls, and they'll go 13 personnel, it seems like, on a frequent basis. And then also defensively, 4-3. Is this kind of, first of all, how do you turn your guys around from going against 3-3-5s all the last 3 weeks? But also, is it kind of like schematically, like an exhale, like, okay, we kind of recognize these types of fronts as opposed to the backs?
Yes and no, but now it's a different matchup, and you're it's for our defense, it's very different than what we've been playing against and what we've seen. And it's like when we played Boston College, I mean, they get a bunch of big guys up front, and boy, you better be really gap sound, all those types of things, because the back will come shooting through there if somebody misses or is a little bit off where they're supposed to be. And they make it hard because they got big bodies coming out on you, and it's tough that way. So that's going to be a unique challenge probably from what we've seen. There's a little bit of that last week, but it's not quite the same, and you can't match the size that Colorado State's got offensively. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit different than flipping it over. This defense looks a little more recognizable, if that's the right word, compared to what we faced the last couple. But it's, still they do some things that we're going to have to be ready for, and I think their guys inside are probably going to challenge us more than maybe anybody we've seen thus far. They got a couple really physical, active guys inside, so it's going to be. We'll see how we can hold up with our interior guys.
When you were recruiting Spencer, from a place, from an area that you don't really recruit much, what was it about him that you said this guy fits what we do?
It's kind of interesting. During that recruiting cycle, I was starting to wonder if we were going to like a quarterback. We just were having a hard time getting traction on like it seemed like anybody. Then Ken finally liked someone. There was someone down in Texas. I don't think it was at South Lake Carroll, but it was I can't remember. It was either in Austin or Tom probably know. You're the expert on that. But somewhere down in Texas. So we offered him, and like a week later, Ohio State offered him. He was gone. So, okay, we're back to nobody. And then we ended up on Spencer, and then a quarterback out in Salt Lake City, who was a pretty good player, turned out to be pretty good. So it was kind of an either-or type situation, and really what it boiled down to is who could get here first. And the quarterback from Utah couldn't make it. I think it was a playoff game or whatever happened, and Spencer and his family came out after a playoff game. They played on a Saturday. It was, I think, they're having fires out there. But anyway, it threw them off schedule. They took a red eye in here. And so anyway, he's the first guy to show up. And Ken really had been out there and investigated him, felt great about everything, talking to the high school coach and all that stuff. And once he got here, I think we all felt really good about him. Just kind of person he is. He's really, top-notch guy. He really likes football. It's in his blood, and it's important to him. And he's really conscientious, great work ethic. And we thought he was a pretty good player on film. So that's kind of how I remember it, at least. I don't know if that's factual, but that's how I remember it. And, obviously we're thrilled he's here.
Justin Jacobs said something earlier today along the lines of players and coaches try not to use youth as an excuse. Looking at the first 3 games, him who's stepping into a major role, a lot of players on the defensive line who are young have really stepped up. I guess the 2-part question is, what is that process like of building up their confidence, and what is it like to see them have that success early on?
Yeah, Peter King had a great line a year ago during the pandemic, and basically the line was, whenever the chaos ends, nobody's going to care. Anybody's going to care about is the football, right? So whether, quarantines, all that stuff, and all the things we were all challenged with last year, his point was, whenever the ball gets teed up, nobody really cares. Forget about all the alibis, all the reasons you can't get something done. And I've kind of, that's really stuck with me, and I think that's really, kind of been part of our, not mantra, but just discussion this year is like, nobody really cares if we're young at this spot or that spot. And, because ultimately, whenever you play the games, it's about getting the job done that day. So that again, I said, I think before, going into this season, that's probably been my biggest concern, the amount of guys that we've had that really haven't been through a lot. And we're hardly there yet, but at least we're making progress, and we've held up in some tough circumstances and situations. So it gives you encourament, certainly. And then, you just see the guys doing things with a little bit more confidence now. But, I mean, we still only have played one road game. There's still a lot of things in front of us that we haven't done or been faced with. But I also got to think that, at least our guys can start, they've got some evidence now that, hey, maybe I can do this and do it pretty well. So hopefully it's something we can build on, and but that's everybody doing their part to make that happen. So I feel a little bit better about things now than I did a month ago, certainly.
Looking at the offensive line, you said with Shaw being out, guys like Justin Britt, Connor Colby ready to get some experience. With him back into the mix when he gets, in-game shape, how do you feel about the interior of the offensive line, and what type of rotation you might have moving forward?
Yeah, we'll figure that out. But the good news is now I think we have some guys that can play. And a month ago I wasn't sure, or 2 months ago for sure. You just wondered about a lot of things. And at that point, before Kyler got hurt, you just, two things you figure you can count on are like, Linderbaum and Schott felt like we had a pretty good idea how they'd respond. So, we have a lot more evidence now, and if there is a blessing of somebody being out of the mix, it gives other guys the opportunity to prove that they can belong and do some things. And again, we're seeing improvement in practice, which makes me feel better. I think all of us feel a little bit better just when you watch on film. Hey, this guy's starting to, see it a little faster, hit a little faster, and those kinds of things. The things that those veteran guys do already, that's good. And during my time coaching at any level, basically, but especially in the college level, if you got 7 or 8 guys you can put in a game and feel confident, boy, you're in good shape. And we're approaching that way. We're not there yet, but we're approaching. I think it's realistic to think that's a possibility. And maybe when we get to 9, it'd be pretty good. My first year in college football was at Pitt in 1980, and I swear to God, we had 5 really good players. We had a 6th guy. We rotated 2 guards. After that, it was Jim Sweeney, who was a true freshman. Had a great career in the NFL, but at that time he was like 219 pounds out of South Catholic High School. He was the mutt. There were 2 other guys. One went to Penn State, one went to Tennessee, and then Jim came to Pitt. He was the best of the 3. But anyway, nobody knew that. But he was our 7th guy. So just kind of puts things in perspective. I kind of carry that with me all the time when you start getting nervous about things.
Pretty rare that you'd rotate 6 receivers. It's usually 4.
Yeah.
What has made you kind of expand that?
It just, it's like the line discussion, really. It just depends on who's, what's the level. And if you got 3 guys up here and everybody else down there, those 3 are playing. But it's really pretty close right now. We're seeing some, even there was the Arlen and, Keegan. They're young guys, but they do encouraging things. So, if somebody starts to really separate, we'll do, probably lean a little bit more to the left or right. But right now, I think we've got, a pretty healthy situation. We're seeing some good things. It's good to see a guy like Jackson Ritter jump in and make some plays. Made one the other day again, right? So those are encouraging things. Those are little subtle things that just, hopefully will help us build as we go.
I think this was the first game I can remember in a while you didn't run any Wildcat. Just want to make sure that's not dead. It's still part of
It's not dead. No, Willie the Wildcat is still roaming our playbook somewhere. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. So yeah, you're right. But yeah, we still got it. I think.
What Chad just asked about with the rotation there, is it ideal to you that you continue with, to have 6 guys that are in competition or like that? Or at some point in time, when you're in the heart of Big Ten play, would you rather have guys solidify and say, we know who our 4 or 5 are?
If we have 6 that we can put in the game, that's great. And that'll play itself out as we go. But yeah, we don't have a master plan right now. We're just kind of playing it week by week, day by day. But as long as those guys practice well, yeah, they're gonna keep being in there, and we'll see how it all settles out.
You've rarely used a true freshman close to the ball like this, except for Tristan, who's otherworldly in a lot of ways. But Connor Colby getting a lot of snaps, and especially at guard, he's probably projects more outside future-wise. But what have you seen from him, and how has he moved into that, at least the rotation, if not challenging for starting snaps at some point?
Well, it's kind of like the 2 first-year freshman receivers I just mentioned. Since they've been here, they just seem to fit. They just act like they belong. Don't seem overwhelmed, and have done a pretty good job. And Connor's kind of been that same way. And it's unusual for an offensive lineman, as we know. But he's done a pretty good job of it. And we move him around, tackle and guard. Doesn't seem to bother him left, right. So he's a little bit of an unflappable guy. Yeah, and that's a good thing. And it doesn't seem too big. There's still things he's learning. He balks every now and then and makes a mistake or 2 and that type of deal. But no, it's encouraging. So that's one we weren't necessarily counting on, but it's been good. And then the door opened a little bit too with Kyler's injury. Just opened the door for everybody to have some more opportunity.
Kirk, I know you haven't had any, but there's been a lot of targeting calls so far. Are you comfortable with how it's being?
No, it's just it's such a hard call. And what did I see? Could have been Saturday night. Somebody went in that game, right? I didn't see a lot of that game, but it's so hard. It's hard to be a defensive guy going to the football and then hitting the brakes, and maybe you can do it in a cartoon, but in real life, it's hard to do. It's hard to play aggressive football, and then, I understand it, and we need those kinds of rules. I guess I'll go back to like the beginning. I always felt like, when somebody in row 48 can say, oh my God, that person should be kicked out of a game, that's targeting. Just those flagrant, dirty plays, that type of thing. But I understand what we're trying to do. I get it. But it's really hard. And it's a tough call to be right on if you're an official.
Because it seems like offensive players can put their heads down.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's an interesting discussion too. So cut blocks, right? Which I've sworn off of cut blocks, but offensive guys can get cut. I'll just put it that way. Like defensive guys will come in and chop our fullback, and then conversely, if an offensive guy cuts, it's risky. So it's a tough job, and the rules have made it tougher. Some of the rules we have, it's just really. Unless you're a service academy, I don't know if I'd cut any more on offense. Outside of that little circumference in the middle there. So.
Well, officials talk all the time about mechanics of the game and what they see. And they're going to miss calls. Everybody knows that, but they're always about, I want to be in this spot and doing this thing. Yep. That seemed to be the case on a third down pass in the third quarter to Tyrone Tracy, and then it kind of surprised everyone in the stadium and probably watching it on TV when. It even got buzzed, let alone reversed. What was kind of the
delayed buzz, by the way?
Yeah,
like a 3-minute later buzz.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, if the guy was using the restroom or what? I don't know. Came back in and said, "Hey, let's buzz that."
It was like the flag in that Ohio State championship. Yeah. But anyway, what I know you probably had some sort of discussion with the Big Ten. Just what happened here? What happened? What did you hear? What did they say?
Just in a nutshell, my personal opinion is if someone in the stadium should have final say, it should be the referee. The guy that has the white hat, he earned it. So it's a position that comes with a lot of decision making. It's a tough position. So to me, at least, if somebody's going to get booed, at least get booed for something you did, not something that got passed on to you to deliver the bad news. One of those shots. And the other thought I have is that there ought to be probably a central location where those things are decided. I mean, we only play, once we get in Big Ten play, we play, 7 games a weekend at the most? And, 2 calls a game, let's say maybe 3. Do the math, you get different time slots. It can't be that hard. I mean, just pick 3 or 4 people that are, or do it nationally, whatever. I think, the NFL does a lot of things right, and they probably got a better system than we do, or maybe put it back in the coach's hands, either challenge or don't challenge. I don't know, but it needs to be discussed. It really does. It's unfortunate, and that's the way it goes, I guess. So, anyway. It will not, I'll predict this. Nothing's going to happen in the near future, like the next 3 months, and I'm pretty sure of that, so.
Coach, preseason.
Give you a little feedback.
Okay. In the preseason, the offensive line, defensive line maybe were the most questionable.
So, I'm sorry, but to that point, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just not going to worry about it. Right? Just not going to worry about it.
The offensive line, defensive line, maybe the most questionable pieces moving forward after losing quite a bit of talent. Defensive line, pretty productive so far, maybe ahead of schedule. Offensive line getting there. Are there any areas where maybe you're thinking, we're just a little bit behind, and you like to catch them up to speed?
Yeah, I don't know behind, but everything ties to the other. Like everything's so intertwined, and so I think Saturday we took some strides offensively. But again, I think a lot of it, and I said this a week ago, I think a lot of it depends on what we do up front and how we grow and develop there. Not that that's the end all, but it's easier to have a good offensive team when your line's clicking a little bit, and same thing on defense, and I think a lot of our success in the back end is predicated on us doing a good job up front defensively. So, when you get everybody playing together, that really gives you a chance, and it's certainly. So it's just how fast can we improve, and that's always kind of been the story of our teams. If we can get better as the season goes on, then we'll have a chance to have a good team, and if we don't, we'll just kind of be somewhere in the middle or below that. So we just got to keep. But that's everybody. I mean, everybody's got ownership, or the older guys got to play better too, and that's. I think for the most part, they're all trying to uphold their end of the bargain.
I know you're not really looking ahead, but with this being the last game before a really tough stretch of Big Ten conference play, is there a sense maybe of urgency of like batting down the hatches before
I mean, we've been doing that for 3 weeks, and I'd consider last week's game a tough game. You know, I think a lot of respect for their football team and their staff. Had it last week when I stood here, and I've got more for them now. I think they're a really good football team, and they gave us a lot of challenges the other day, a lot of problems. So, and I'm you know, I've said it before too. I don't really spend a lot of time worrying about opponents. Like I do, but I don't. But you know, you do whatever work you do in the out of season. But I would not say I'm a fanatic, and I don't. You know, it's up to the coaches to depend on how much time they want to invest. To me, the focus has always been more about what's in the building here and what we can do to improve. And, you know, if you're good enough, you're good enough. But, you know, all you can worry about is how fast you can get better. And obviously you got to match up against your opponent, and that's part of coaching too, and that's what we do during the game week. But the bigger target is just what I said at the start. You know, we're trying to win games, but basically we got to be moving forward as a football team. And if we do that, we'll get what we deserve at the end of the year. But that's, you know, it's week by week right now, and you know, it's always a challenge. And there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, there's just so many things that happen right now. We can't predict what it's gonna look like in October, even November. You know, who knows? You know, I mean, we still got 4 days till game day, so a lot of things can happen that way too. Okay, thank you.